Dorothy Stratten's death was a shocking tragedy. Young, beautiful, and on the rise at just 20 years of age, she had it all. A Playboy centerfold that was in demand in Hollywood. Today, we'll look at her brief life and career and compare the two movies based on her life.
Married, right?
Right.
Well, that line's a little short. It's weak, but that's not what I'm worried about.
No?
There's a bad romance here.
Take your heels off.
I already did.
Napoleon was only 5'2", you know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, let's book it.
I didn't go out with boys very much. I was very straight. I couldn't talk to people easily.
Dorothy Ruth Stratten was born on February 28, 1960, and passed away on August 14, 1980. She was known professionally as Dorothy Stratten, a Canadian model and actress mostly known for her appearances as a Playboy Playmate. Stratten was the Playboy Playmate of the Month for August 1979 and Playmate of the Year in 1980, and appeared in 3 comedy films and several episodes of TV shows broadcast on American networks. She also starred in the science fiction comedy Galaxina. Involved with director Peter Bogdanovich at the time of the film's US release in June 1980, Dorothy Stratten complained to him that the print ads for Galaxina also promoted her status as Playboy's Playmate of the Year, upsetting Dorothy, who now wanted to be taken seriously as an actress.
Galaxina, a science fiction spoof inspired by Star Wars during its few good moments and by Captain Video during its many, many bad moments.
To sweep the heavens against the forces of evil. Playboy's Playmate of the Year is Galaxina, rated R.
Oh, you're all disgusting.
Now, my pretty robot. Didn't you know robots do not have emotions? You're beginning to act human.
That was Dorothy Stratten at the beginning of that clip. She plays Galaxina, and she is the Playboy Playmate who was murdered last year, and unfortunately, this movie didn't really give her a chance to do much more acting than you saw there.
And it started out very funny, a few cute gags, and then nothing. No adventure. At least in Airplane, the spoof, they were smart enough to think, let's have an adventure story. Will the plane get down? Here, nothing.
This movie won the Audience Award at the 1983 Brussels International Festival of Fantasy Film. The scene where the woman on screen opens her shirt to reveal her breasts to excite male crew members was added later because producers felt the film needed nudity. In his 1984 Stratton Ode, The Killing of the Unicorn, Peter Bogdanovich wrote that she was miserable on the film set. But William Sachs alleges that this is inaccurate. The biker cult that captures Galaxina worships a holy trinity of Ali David's son. Not only is this a subtle reference to the 3 original branches of Abrahamic faith, Muslim, Ali is a common Arabic name which means high or elevated, Jewish, Star of David, Christian, Son of God. It bears a phonetic resemblance to Harley Davidson, the motorcycle manufacturer.
Are you getting a divorce?
You're getting very personal, aren't you?
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. It's just that you've got to be clear.
The last film she worked on was They All Laughed. After Dorothy Stratten's murder, no major studio released the film, fearing it would bomb due to the tragic context in the public mind. Director Peter Bogdanovich spent $5 million of his own money to distribute the film himself. The film failed, and the director was worried about financial and professional ruin. Peter Bogdanovich has said, "This is my favorite among my films, by a long shot." Audrey Hepburn said of this movie, "I chose to work with Peter because he is so fond of the lovely old movies they used to make. Not that there aren't some outstanding ones today, but to some extent, they've strayed too far from the positive romantic aspects of life." Director Peter Bogdanovich considered casting himself as Charles Rutledge, but felt he was too old. He rang up John Ritter and cast him, saying he would portray a younger version of himself. Director Quentin Tarantino has called the movie a masterpiece. This film's title was changed to Tinseltime when referenced in Star 80. Dorothy was murdered shortly after co-starring in the movie They All Laughed at the age of 20 by her estranged husband and manager Paul Snider, whom she was in the process of divorcing and breaking business ties with.
It was written almost tailor-made for all the people in the picture. Every line was written with the people in mind, you know, who played the part.
You have my charge plate. Use it.
It's been canceled.
I can't buy anything? That son of a bitch.
Autumn Born, directed by Lloyd A. Samandel, was a 1979 movie starring Dorothy Stratten. In it, a wealthy young woman is kidnapped and taken to a school of discipline. The fictional filming of this movie is shown in the Bob Fosse film Star 80. which is about the death of Dorothy Stratten and is called Wednesday's Child instead of Autumn Born. In Star 80, Dorothy Stratten, played by Muriel Hemingway, is being slapped by an actor, and she bites into a blood pellet too soon, and the director gets mad at her. Eric Roberts, who plays Stratton's crazy husband, Paul Snider, calls her up and gets her to cry on the set. That's in Star 80. And Wednesday's Child is this movie, Autumn Born, and it's awful. It looks like a porno, acts like a porno, and has music like a porno, but it doesn't pay off at all. There is lesbianism involved, but they kiss each other's noses, and that's it. The sex is all edited out for the most part, and all that's left is horrific acting. They cut out so much sex that it doesn't even seem as if this movie deserves an R rating. It's awful, but somewhat fun to watch, I guess. In one scene, Stratten falls in love with a wind-up mouse, and then she hears voices in another room singing the Three Blind Mice song about the farmer's daughter cutting off the mouse's tail, and Stratten begins crying and trying to hide the mouse inside the walls. Since this film mainly deals with lesbianism, they should have at least shown some natural kissing or something other than poorly edited nose pecks. To note, other films mentioned in Star 80 that are in real life starred Stratten are Ball Bearings, which is really Skatown, USA. And there's the movie They All Laughed shown, but that title isn't mentioned in Star 80. Since the Fosse film is one of my all-time favorite movies, I checked out Autumn Born, aka Wednesday's Child, and I wish I hadn't because it was a big tease and nothing more. Dorothy Stratten was born in Grace Maternity Hospital in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, to Simon and Nellie Hoog Stratten, who had emigrated from the Netherlands. In 1977, Stratten was attending Centennial High School in Coquitlam. Concurrently, she was working part-time at a local Dairy Queen, where she met 26-year-old Vancouver area club promoter and pimp Paul Snider, who began dating her. Snider later had a photographer take professional nude photos of Stratten, which were sent to Playboy magazine in the summer of 1978. She was under 19, the legal age of majority in British Columbia, so she had to persuade her mother to sign the model release form. She had rocketed to fame as the Playboy Playmate of the Year. Now, Hollywood was calling.
Or until you were just so old and used up that no man would ever want you.
If you can figure out a way to get us out of here, you can count me in.
She landed guest roles on TV shows such as Buck Rogers and Fantasy Island. Things got even better for her when she earned a substantial role in the movie They All Laughed, a comedy film starring Audrey Hepburn, Ben Gazzara, and John Ritter. She maintained warm relationships with Hollywood heavy hitters, including Playboy founder Hugh Hefner. But Stratton's personal life was messy. Her marriage to her controlling small-time manager, Paul Snider, was on the rocks. Estranged from her husband, she started seeing director Peter Bogdanovich, who had recently split from Sybil Shepherd. On August 14, 1980, Stratten met with Snider to plan their divorce. Enraged, he beat, raped, and shot her to death. She was only 20 years old. Then he turned the gun on himself. Tinseltown was shocked. How could a 26-year-old pimp date a high school student? Shouldn't there have been red flags to her family and friends? She was young and naive, and Snider exploited her. As she slowly turned into an adult, she recognized him for the scumbag he was and tried to break away. But she wanted to do it in person, not just through social ties, and that was her downfall. There have been several tributes to her in music, the printed page, and film. Today, we'll examine the two major motion pictures about Dorothy Stratten.
Then lonely days turn to endless nights. The best was yet to come.
If I had read, about this, or maybe thought about doing a Playboy Bunny, that wouldn't have been my first choice.
How much of it was fact and how much of it was fiction?
It's very difficult for me to separate them at this point. I mean, if I were pushed to do it, and for specifics, you'd have to ask me certain specific questions. Doing my research on it and then fictionalizing, obviously things had to be fictionalized as far as conversations and when they took place and what was said, because no one knows those answers.
I have this feeling about Dorothy. She's going to be a big star.
And I'm terrified every minute you're out with him what he might do.
He never hurt me. Makes me feel like I'm somebody.
But you are somebody.
First, let's look at Death of a Centerfold. a 1981 American made-for-television biographical drama film optioned by Larry Wilcox and his company Wilcox Productions. Wilcox signed the paperwork at midnight and beat out Hugh Hefner and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Later, Wilcox developed the story and pitched it to MGM, where he had a production development deal, and subsequently to NBC. MGM and Wilcox then hired director Gabrielle Beaumont. It is a dramatization of the life and the murder of Playboy Playmate of the Year Dorothy Stratten, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. The movie aired on November 1, 1981. The film also stars Bruce Weitz as Paul Snider with Robert Reed, Mitchell Ryan and Bebe Besch. Larry Wilcox of Chips fame optioned and owned the TV production, and he negotiated a deal with MGM and NBC to make the story a movie of the week. At the family's insistence, the names and relationships of her mother and sister were altered. The New York Times critic John J. O'Connor praised the movie. The movie works remarkably well in building a dramatic momentum. Jamie Lee Curtis's Dorothy is a thoroughly understandable, if not sympathetic figure, and Bruce Weitz is extraordinary. People magazine also praised the film. Jamie Lee Curtis is just right as Stratton, and Bruce Weitz is a standout as her ex. Movie critic Leonard Maltin described the film as exploitative. Death of a Centerfold, the Dorothy Stratten story finished 27th in the Nielsen ratings. When the film was broadcast a second time on NBC in July 1983, it fared better, finishing 4th.
Look, I don't feel I should have to justify anything to you, but if it matters to you, I'm staying with David because he—
This is Paulie! You can't jive me! I know the trip that dude's laying on you.
Maybe then I could get your back. Is that what you're saying? Sit down, those fucking bastards.
I want to leave.
Star 80 is a 1983 American biographical drama film written and directed by Bob Fosse. It was adapted from the Pulitzer Prize-winning Village Voice article Death of a Playmate by Teresa Carpenter and is based on Canadian Playboy model Dorothy Stratten, who was murdered by her husband, Paul Snider, in 1980. The film's title is taken from one of Snider's vanity license plates. The film was Fosse's final film before he died in 1987. The film stars Mariel Hemingway as Stratten and Eric Roberts as Snider, with Cliff Robertson, Carol Baker, Roger Rees, Stuart Damon, Josh Mostel, and David Clennon in supporting roles. The film chronicles Stratton's relationship with Snider, their move to Los Angeles, her success as a Playboy model, the dissolution of their relationship, and her murder. Star 80 was filmed on location in Vancouver and Los Angeles. The death scene was filmed in the same house in which the real murder-suicide took place. The film was released on November 10, 1983. It initially received mixed reviews from critics, but the performances of Hemingway and Roberts received critical acclaim. The film has been reappraised over the years and has been reviewed positively. Mariel Hemingway believed she was ideal for the part and campaigned for it vigorously with letters, telephone messages, and visits to Fosse's home. After 4 auditions, she eventually won the role, and her casting was announced in March 1982.
I do love her.
What did you say?
I said I love her.
Funny. I could have sworn you said I love it.
Some in the media reported that Hemingway had undergone breast augmentation surgery to secure the part. In the 2020 documentary Skin, A History of Nudity in the Movies, Hemingway admits she did indeed have a breast enlargement procedure before being cast, but says, "I did it for me. I wouldn't have done that because of a movie." Nude photographs of Hemingway posing as Stratten appeared in the January 1984 issue of Playboy magazine. According to Fosse, he had to persuade Eric Roberts to play the role of Paul Snider, a character whom Roberts considered unlikable. Early media speculation suggested that Harry Dean Stanton might be cast as Playboy publisher Hugh Hefner, but Cliff Robertson was reportedly researching the role by visiting Hefner's mansion. Hefner disliked his depiction in the film and sued its producers, but the suit was later dismissed. Years later, in a 1998 interview, Hefner had let off on some of his dislike of the film, saying that it did not capture Stratton's essence, but he did praise Eric Roberts for an excellent portrayal of the sick man who murdered her. The film was Carol Baker's first Hollywood production since her 1967 return from Europe. To the Stratten family's wishes, Stratton's mother is never mentioned by name in the film, and the names of her sister and brother are changed. Director Peter Bogdanovich, Stratton's boyfriend at the time of her murder, expressed opposition to the project, arguing that Fosse didn't know the true story. Fosse acknowledged the statement as true but countered that the film was about Snyder. Bogdanovich refused to allow his name to be used in the film and threatened to sue if he found the character of Aram Nicholas to be objectionable. He provided his opinions of the film in his 1984 biography of Stratton, The Killing of the Unicorn, Dorothy Stratten, 1960 to 1980, but he did not pursue legal action. Pre-production began in Stratton's hometown of Vancouver in January 1982. Sets were created to represent Stratton's bedroom, high school gymnasium, and the Dairy Queen where she had met Snyder. After Hefner refused to allow filming at his estate, an unoccupied mansion in Pasadena, California, was renovated to resemble Hefner's mansion. After the film's release, Hefner expressed disappointment, describing it as too shallow. The film's party scenes show actual Playboy models. Principal photography began on July 6, 1982, in Vancouver and continued for 4 months, including 4 weeks in Vancouver and 12 weeks in Los Angeles, and finished 3 days ahead of schedule. Star 80 is the second film based on the murder of Stratton, preceded by the 1981 television film Death of a Centerfold, the Dorothy Stratten story, with Jamie Lee Curtis as Stratton and Bruce Weitz as Snyder. The film opened in 16 theaters in major cities on November 10, 1983, grossing $233,000 on its opening weekend. Warner Brothers planned to release the movie to more theaters for the Christmas season and to give it a wide release in time for the next Academy Awards ceremony. Eventually, the film grossed $6,473,000 in the U.S. and was shown at a peak of 502 theaters in early 1984. Star 80 has an 81% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 16 reviews. First, let me say that Death of a Centerfold has all the limitations of a low-budget made-for-television film. The high point of the film is Jamie Lee Curtis's performance. Muriel Hemingway does an excellent job in Star 80, but I think Curtis outshines her slightly. As far as the look goes, Hemingway looks a bit more like Dorothy Stratten, so there's that. When it comes to Paul Snyder, Eric Roberts is perfect. He is just the right mix of sleaze and charm to pull the character off. Bruce Weitz has the sleaze factor down, but not the charm. I can't see a naive high school girl falling for this creep at all. Star 80 goes into much more detail about her life in her films, and it's structured much better, even if a lot of names have been changed. Peter Bogdanovich is the obvious influence for Aram Nicholson, played by Roger Rees. In the end, both films are entertaining, but the production values that went into Star 80 far outshine the limited budget in Death of a Centerfold's low-budget offering. That was our show for today. What did you think? Have you seen either movie based on Dorothy Stratten? Did you like one over the other? Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Also, I'd be honored if you subscribe to my channel, ring the bell to stay informed, and check out my Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise in the comments. Until next time, this is Axel for Kevin Given saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you and keep reaching for the stars.